Elected on the promise of getting more jobs, overhauling regulations, dismantling taxes and undertaking an infrastructure spending boom, Donald Trump was considered as a boon to the American economy. Today, while the president can certainly take credit for being in office while the economy has surged, the administration has made little headway with actually repealing taxes or cutting away red tape. While the US dollar has retraced its earlier gains, equity markets continue to rise as corporate profits and revenue are boosting price shares. So is Donald Trump good or bad for the global markets of the dollar? To discuss this, I would like to invite on stage our next expert, Professor Avinash Persod. Professor Avinash Persod is a senior fellow at the Assistant Institute of International Economics. His career spans decades over finance, academia, and policy advice. He is a chairman of Elara Capital. Professor Persod is Emeritus Professor of Gresham College and visiting fellow at CFAP Judge Institute in the Cambridge. He has been a top-ranked sell-side analyst for 15 years and later an executive at JP Morgan, State Street, and UBS GAM. He is known for his work on liquidity black holes and investors' shifting risk appetite. Professor Persod.
She knew him well, of course. Wearing her best silken pearls, she was the guest of honor at his third wedding at the Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida in 2005. He's temperamentally unsuited to being President of the United States, she said. His supporters are deplorables, she added, long before the crimes of Charlottesville. His command of reality is sketchy. According to the ancient fable, which, like much Indian wisdom, is attributed to the Greeks, the fox knows many things, but the tortoise knows one big thing. And the one big thing that Trump knew, and Clinton did not, was that being insulted by senior members of America's political monarchy for a lack of presidential decorum just fired up Donald Trump's base. Many white working-class Americans were fed up with decorum. Real wages for blue-collar workers had been stuck for 30 years. Asians had taken their jobs. Soon they will notice that Asia is financing and casting their movies too. And over all of this time, the inheritors of the American Revolution, the overthrowers of monarchy, have had a Bush or a Clinton as vice president, president, secretary of state, senator, governor. Enough of that, they said. 9 months later, we've all had enough of the late-night twittering, of musical chairs at the White House press office, of fixations with removing Obamacare without replacing it, of re-twittering history, of race baiting, and all that craziness. And this will not end. It cannot. Populists win elections by saying that the reason why problems persist is because no one is as straight-talking as they are. Not because problems are complicated. The unread agree, but they are wrong. Life is in technicolor, not black and white. Win-wins are found in self-help books, not public policy. And it's harder for the winners to pay off the losers from change without upsetting societal norms. Populism can win elections, but it cannot govern. It's not that policy has become only a little more chaotic, but that a little chaos is the only policy. Today, perversely, this makes investing easier than you might think. It makes the short run more volatile, but the long run more inevitable. Let me explain. US monetary policy will have a benign backdrop to global markets. Central bankers remain enthralled to the religion of inflation targeting, in part because they've tried many other targets, and this is the easiest one to hit. Strip out food and energy, and CPI inflation, consumer price index inflation, flat lines around 2%. Another time, perhaps when we have more time, we can talk about the increasing irrelevance of the CPI basket of goods, of the average citizen. What does average mean in today's societies? Today's societies are ones where less people are average, in which the middle has been hollowed out. The average is a statistical construct, not a representative measure of people's lives. Truth is not statistical, to quote Orwell. Central banks will hit their inflation targets. Whether they should is a different story. Those who want the Fed to tighten preemptively point to the historically uneasy juxtaposition of record low interest rates and a near record low unemployment rate. Labour markets are tight, they say. Inflation is on the way. Those who don't want the Fed to rock the boat counter with the weakness of the labour market participation rate at 62%. Just 62% of able-bodied people are actually employed. 38% are not. The labour participation rate at 62% is 10% lower than a decade ago. So, they say, if the demand for labour rises, new people will be drawn into the labour market without wages having to be bid up. And arbitrating between these two camps is Jedi Master Janet Yellen, who many believe is a dove. She's constrained also from acting preemptively by knowledge that in Congress today there is an increasingly large and vocal group who feel the Fed overstepped its mandate with quantitative easing, needs its wings clipped, and are just waiting to jump on any sign of a misstep by the Washington institution. Trump supporters consider Janet Yellen a little uppity as well, given her expressions of concern over the proposed relaxation of financial regulation. She will no doubt be replaced. And be replaced probably by Gary Cohen, another Goldman Sachs investment banker who is currently Trump's chairman of the National Council of Economic Advisors and is an even bigger dove than Janet Yellen. With much confidence, we can conclude that interest rates may rise, but will not do so in a manner that alarms the bond or stock markets. Inflation is not there, and the inclination to preempt is not there either. Fiscal policy will prolong the stock rally. Trump championed a large infrastructure spending program. Hopes of this have faded as Trump has proved incapable of getting contentious and complex bills through Congress. His congressional support shrinks a little with every day as we approach the midterm elections and with every tweet. However, Trump will have better luck with a corporate tax cut. Fewer economists have done more damage than Arthur Laffer, who argued that there was a point where tax reductions actually increased tax revenues by incentivizing more activity. This is the Ark of the Covenant for American politicians of both right and left. Even though Harrison Ford had much more luck finding the Ark in film than Laffer has ever found it in actually finding this point in tax policy around the world. But the stock market is the triumph of optimists. The market will like a corporate tax cut, irrespective of the ultimate effects of the tax cut on the national economy. More corporate profits will finance more stock buybacks. And Trump's appointees to regulatory bodies, such as the SEC in finance and elsewhere, the EPA in other areas, are also pursuing a deregulatory agenda, along the same spiritual lines of the tax policy, less means more. The empirical evidence, again, is contrary to this focus. According to NYU's Thomas Philippon, US product market efficiency has fallen in recent years. Market power of big firms has increased. America actually needs more product regulation, more antitrust enforcement, not less. But less will bolster corporate profits, especially of large firms, who are disproportionately represented on the stock market. And so this will be good for stocks and for big caps over small caps in particular. It is highly unlikely that any of these policies would do anything to grow the economy sustainably faster. Monopoly power slows growth, and large US corporates already have enormous surpluses of cash. Stock buybacks last year were over $500 billion. $500 billion of stock buybacks. If companies won't invest the cash they already have, what point is there of giving them even more? And if this extra cash is actually financed through underinvestment in public education, where there is a surfeit of empirical evidence of the high rates of return, then the net long-term economic effect of this fiscal policy could in fact be negative. Indeed, this is a simple framework you need to use in interpreting policy. Unless we see something that bolsters the upskilling of America, or the better mobilization of domestic savings for long-term investment, the jobs will not return sustainably, and growth will not impress the voters. Fiddling around with tax and interest rates will just be seen as a noisy distraction. Now, born of frustration with unsatisfying levels of growth, the only real policy of the Trump White House, a policy born of default rather than deliberate, will be a dollar devaluation policy. The dollar has already fallen 8% so far, but this is just the beginning. Expect a fall of some 20 to 30% across the board, if not more. What do I mean by a dollar devaluation policy in a country that has a floating exchange rate, a freely moving exchange rate? It's sometimes referred to as a benign neglect policy. It's a policy of talking down the dollar, of making it very clear that dollar weakness will not be offset by policy, that there will be no intervention to support the dollar. There will be no pressing of monetary policy, exchange rate policy, interest rate, intervention policy. And that removal of support will reinforce the decline. We've seen it before. The first Clinton administration employed a dollar devaluation policy. The weakness of the dollar, having done its bit to revive the economy, then started impinging on financial markets and US inflation. And Rob Rubin, US Treasury Secretary, had to turn around and say, the US believes in a strong dollar. And why did he have to say that? Because for the previous 5 years, the markets were convinced the US believed in a weak dollar. And we shall see a return to that belief. A 30% devaluation of the US dollar will bring a real wall of competitiveness against Mexican imports, or imports of any other country. Exporters and import substitutors in America will prosper. Jobs in these sectors will be kept. There will be strong distributional effects, and this will have significant geographical, political importance. The cake will be divided up differently as a result of a dollar devaluation, but it won't grow in size. prices, the cake of the economy. The economic benefits of devaluation are the result of a reduction in real wages. A nation cannot grow rich by cutting its wages. Commodity prices in dollars will also rise. So those emerging market currencies, like the real, the rand, the ruble, the rupiah, where there are commodity exports and dollar-denominated debts, will perform the best. Countries that are primarily import commodities and primarily export to the US will struggle and underperform. So Trumpism is good for the short end of bond markets and for the US stock market. For US large caps over small caps. For US exporters over US importers. For commodity exporters around the world over importers. And emerging market currencies. Currency markets follow cycles. The dollar is weak today, it will get weaker, as it has done in the past, in between periods of dollar strength. In terms of weakness, you only need to go back to 2009 to 2011, or further, 89 to 1995, or 75 to 79, prolonged periods of dollar weakness. The interesting thing about these cycles, if you look at a chart for these cycles, there are very clear peaks and troughs, tops and bottoms. And at these tops and bottoms, the markets do not get to the top, screech, turn around, and go back down again on their own accord. The tops and bottoms of exchange rates are defined by policy action, by intervention in exchange rate markets, by coordinated central banks, or by interest rate policy. And so, in fact, that observation led me, over a decade ago, to coin something some of you may remember, the first rule of foreign exchange, which is that exchange rates trend to that point that provokes an opposing policy reaction. The dollar will keep on falling until there is an opposing policy reaction. And what will that opposing policy reaction be? A Fed aggressively tightening, interest rates rising? That's not on the cards anytime soon. Trump is a tremor. He's not a policy reaction. The change we need in America, the change we need in many places in the advanced economies, is an upskilling of workers, not an underinvestment in education. Is a regulation that better mobilizes domestic savings for long-term investment, not greater stock buybacks. Until we get that, assume the current trends that you see today become entrenched and deeper and go further. But the change will come. We will hit a trough. We will hit a turning point. That day must come. Politics will deliver it. And then markets will be upended. Equity and bond valuations will re-rate lower, rapidly, quickly, disruptively. So all the time that you must enjoy the pattern I've described today, of continuing strength in stock markets, of US exporters doing better than US importers, you must also be gradually building up your insurance for that day when it turns around. Stocks have further to run for now. Much further, much longer. But the VIX is also too cheap. Thank you very much indeed. Any questions on the macroeconomic picture? There's a question over there, if we get a microphone.
Hi. I'm not too sure if I got your point correctly on the interest rates. So are you saying that they will not rise?
What matters to markets is not whether they rise or fall. What matters is, do they rise more aggressively than is priced into the marketplace? Will they behave in a way way that alarms the bond market and the equity markets. I'm saying they may well rise, they will rise, but they will not do so in a manner that alarms the bond markets and the equity markets. They will not do so more aggressively than is priced in today. For that, you need to see a real threat of rising actual inflation. And we do not see that today.
Thank you.
There's a question over there.
Your speech was very poetic.
Yeah, you just got it maybe closer.
Yeah, your speech was very poetic in that sense, the way you worded it. So in the context that you were talking about, the bond space per se, how do you see the bond space playing out given how highly overvalued the bond space is? One would actually force oneself to be in equity if not in cash. So from the bond space point, we don't have any safe havens anymore. So sovereigns are no longer safe haven given where bonds are. So in this sort of a construct, how do you see the bond space playing out? And from a central bank standpoint, given that we know things are going to, the bubble is going to burst in the bond space, it's just a question of when rather than if. Is it sensible for central banks to kind of gather risk, concentrate risk at one point in time, at one place where they can actually manage and control it, rather than let things be and let things heat up the way they are?
Thank you. So, the bond market, in an environment of excessive liquidity, which we have today, all markets are overvalued. It's one of the difficulties that you have in your job today to invest. Normally, it's difficult because all markets are well priced. It's harder today because all markets are overvalued. But the bond markets are even more overvalued than all the other markets. The thing is, the market can remain overvalued for a very long time. When I was active in financial markets, the JGB market, the Japanese government bond market, had been overvalued for well over 5 years. So you can lose your shirt in betting on the turn. And I'm arguing, do not bet on that turn today. Assume that you have a benign monetary policy environment. That benign monetary policy environment will favor the shorter end of the bond market than the longer. The additional problem for bond markets, the additional reason why they're particularly overvalued, is that regulators have added to the problem by creating, by defining government bonds as safe assets and requiring financial institutions to carry large amounts of safe assets. So when you look at the regulation that says, you must carry safe assets, you think that's fine. But the government defines what a safe asset is. And they define a safe asset as their bonds. And as a result, as you know, earlier this year, something like $5 trillion of government bonds were yielding less than zero. And you can be guaranteed you're going to make a loss in that investment. So that adds to the complication. I would say where there is value for the investor constrained in the bond markets then is going to be on the corporate side. You're going to have a monetary policy environment that allows the nexus of interest rates to remain steady. So there isn't value, but value is not being sucked out of the market by rising interest rates. In that environment, spreads might tighten further. And corporate bond spreads, especially in countries that are managing to grow and grow faster than, say, the advanced economies, would have better value. So that's where the value is. It's going to be at the short end of the government market and the corporate bond spreads. And I don't think interest rates are going to be very disruptive to bond markets in the near term. Thank you.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Would like to know your views on gold, because the scenario in which we are currently, I mean, you know, day by day people have started losing faith in the central banks. The Fed is having a credibility crisis, which is what is the perception. So if you can share your views over gold.
I think it's hard for there to be a credibility crisis when inflation rates appear so low. And I think that's going to be the struggle for gold. That we don't have a period of... So gold will benefit from rising inflation and financial sector instability. And we don't have either of those things at the moment. So I'm not particularly bullish on gold. I would say the one thing we do have is markets that are overvalued and therefore vulnerable, more vulnerable to volatility. And that's why I would say a cleaner way of taking advantage of that are betting that we don't know where the volatility will come from, but there will be some volatility greater than we've seen. The better way of taking advantage of that is not the gold market, of course, but in the options market, in the VIX, for example, in betting specifically that volatility is too low. If you were to see rising inflation, then I think gold will come into play. If you were to see financial market stress, then gold will come into play. But capital adequacy levels are much higher than before. The financial sectors, I think, are much, I hesitate to say stronger, but more stable at least. And so I don't think this is a gold opportunity. Great, well thank you very much again for listening. I shall be around for the rest of the day if you have any further questions on the macro economy side. These are difficult times to invest. I wish you all the best of luck.